chart of the moment for this recording. So I have all of my original loose leaf notes because that was my first 6 months of like accumulating the basics. It actually took me, about a year of like working with them to find what I found to be like proper basics and then work those into what I shared in that basics video, as well as longer than that to like gather more and more pieces and put them together and like understand what was going on. Um, but when I felt like I had a handle on the basics, when I knew what Aries was and I knew the symbol and I knew what Mars was and I knew the symbol and I felt I knew what the first house was and I knew how to relate them to each other and I had a weak handle on aspects. And it was like, hey, I know what this is, but like, how do I put it together? What do I do with it? And I knew on like a technical level. I have Libra in the 12th house of my chart and it's empty. And so I was like, but I don't really know what Libra is. Like, I can't. I can tell you theoretically, but I can't. I don't have like a robust connection to it. I can't confidently describe it. I can only list off the litany of like what I think it is, these facts, those facts, and then like hope that you are putting it together, meaningfully in your mind because I don't really have that. So I needed a way to like break it down over time and work with it in a dedicated way. And in this time, part of starting is like reading all the horoscopes and being on like CoStar and Pattern and all of those places and like trying to see like who's accurate, who says what, do they line up, are they saying the same thing? You're like trying to figure out what, yeah, who is this legit? And then all of the cookies tracking you are then giving you stuff about like the stars and the moon and anything that lines up with astrology words. So I was getting a lot of content about like new moon, full moon, lunations, manifestation, rituals. So I decided to, I've always liked the moon. She's wonderful. Why wouldn't I want to develop a relationship with the moon if I was able to? And now I have like a vehicle to do so. So I'm not only gonna like study the moon and build a relationship with the moon, which is very romantic and cool and like I like that. That's very, I don't know, cottagecore. That's very grassroots. But I'll also, in a measured, consistent way, be able to talk about the basics as they fit together in my chart in a more like measured, in-depth, thorough way. Okay. So one of the barriers to like not sharing this earlier, especially with the big video like 2 videos ago where I was just talking about like modality and I had that PowerPoint I had made this past January, was I made the PowerPoint and then I was like, oh, like I should do it like proper. I just rewatched Bo Burnham's Inside and the Inside Outtakes, which like really highlights like if you have an artistic vision, you got to work at it. You got to say again and again. You have like fulfill the vision. And then there's this fight all the time between published is better than perfect or do it right the one time. Like actually share your vision, however long it takes. And trying to go after that vision, obviously, too much of a barrier. We're just here, we're just doing it. Publish is better than perfect. As well, treating this kind of as the first draft. So, like, this camera's not very good to, like, show you in detail these handwritten notes. So the idea was like, well, I should take pictures and then email those pictures to myself and then download them onto my laptop and then put them up into Canva and then make them into a PowerPoint so that you can see the notes that I made, which are going to be the same as anybody's notes that they're making. When in reality, I'm not throwing these away, they're just going to go away instead of floating around my living room because I'm going to make the video one day. They're going to go away, and then one day, if I have a better mic, a better camera, I'll be able to like show this again in, rough draft 2 because this is just an ongoing, it's like a living document of me sharing my notes. So, thank you for sticking through the preamble. To the preamble, here are my handwritten loose leaf notes from the beginning. That's too advanced. Basics about fire, the signs in fire, different things about them. Just Googling what you can find. Different planetary orbits, the aspects, what the degree is, what the symbol is, what the name is, if it's a major or a minor, lining up the different hard aspects. Notes about having it all together, so planets and some keywords, the sign that they rule, and if it's fixed, cardinal, or uh, water, air, earth, that kind of thing. Houses and the planets that rule them, because this is the information that's available online, which is ABC, zodiac, and Placidus. So all my original notes are like that. Notes on cardinality and modality, notes on aspects, notes on houses. The other side of the other paper, polarities, the signs, different notes from different sites. The idea that you see about planets energize a house, um, like the planets are the actors and the sign is the costume or whatever, and the house is the topic. The list of all the planets, and Pisces is always squished to the end. That's very Pisces of Pisces, by the way. All of the signs again, and then like a positive and a negative for each sign. Learning the moon for the first time, and like, so if this is the sun, then the new moon is like when the moon is in between the earth and the sun. And then the moon arcs around, and we start to see more of the lit face until moon is, across, and then arcs back around again. Comparing in my own chart, Mercury, keywords for Mercury, Jupiter, keywords for Jupiter. Who's Mercury talking to? These planets, keywords for them. Jupiter, who's Jupiter talking to or not talking to? These points, what that might mean. Mercury's in the third house. That house is joy, keywords, and then where he is, like the sign. And then just seeing how they interact with each other. This is more midpoints, so like that's probably a couple years away from this time. These notes, empty six, why do we care about Mercury? Because 6 is ruled by Virgo. And so notes about all that, that's from natural ABC astrology. And it was in Placidus, and I was reading that wrong. So all of my houses are like shifted up, as well as being in Placidus, which I don't use anymore, as well as these notes being in ABC astrology, which I don't use anymore. But still, like, these were the notes I was using. And then this is the recommendation I have for if you're still struggling with Googling your stuff, or if you like Googling your stuff but it's frustrating, you have to Google or web search separately. Like, everything is a trifecta, right? Like a planet and a house and a sign. And you're not going to find something if you research that, if you search that. So you have to do it in pairs. So like Aries in fifth, Mars and Aries, Mars and fifth. You search those separately. You look up those separately for like the blurb you can find online. Please don't use AI. Just scroll through and catch what is like on the page available, not the AI summation. And then you can like build your placements together like that as like a beginner method to build placements together. Go ahead and Google it. Go ahead and like look up for the answers, but that's how you look it up. You don't look up the whole thing. It's too complicated. You're not going to find the answers. Look for everything in pairs and then mash it together with your own experience. Learn about the nodes. Learn about how things move in the sky. Now this is old notes about wet, cold, the planets involved, the seasons involved, the signs involved, the words involved. And so I wrote this over time and time and time again until like I took the lecture or the course where it's set, and I was like, oh, I understand now. Because you're learning a language, and how you learn a language, you immerse yourself and you kind of like repeat it and parrot it as you go. And like, I used to have a roommate who said they had like sewing Tourette's, not trying to be offensive to Tourette's, so sorry. But because they would just spout off words like seam allowance, bustle, ironing, different words that I was using a lot, but they had no context for. You just come across this language over and over and over again, and you like, sure, you're making notes on it, but it doesn't mean anything. Like, you can't actually use it. So that's fine. You redo it over and over again until the thing sets, right? And so I tangent, tangent number one. The tangent went to the end of the video. It everything turns into self-therapy, so that's what happened over there. Enjoy. God bless. Back to the notes. So you also write down your own aspectarian and figure out, oh, that's how that chart works. They're just lining up the angles in a cross grid for you. Learning about hard aspects and soft aspects, keywords, the symbols, the degrees for those. Domicile and detriment, exalted and fall. Another list, and like these are all worn and tattered and well used because I was using them for like a long time before, and I was always like, oh, I should consolidate them and I should rewrite them and like put them in a nice book. With always the idea that like once I had a fuller understanding and I knew what I was writing, that's when I would consolidate them. Until then, these are just reference notes, that land sometimes and sometimes don't. Um, and then I got to the point where I was starting to like learn techniques like solar return. What is a stellium? I started to have more exposure to the stuff I didn't know, and I didn't want to keep doing the loose leaf, so I went into like an actual journal. But I was using these all through the beginning of my lunar practice. So just another list of everybody, the signs, the houses that they rule, the houses that they are in for me, and then just different keywords over and over and over again. This is one of my final versions and became like the nice and neat version that I would use for the most part because these ones were falling apart. Now, in all of this, I'm starting to learn about the new and the full moon and see more about it, and I'm taking my notes on like how the moon works, taking notes on Chiron, learning more and more, and I'm planning to get into my lunar practice, and I was going to do it for these moons here. So we're going to get into the transition into the lunation observance and those notes, but here's some other loose leaf notes I was still keeping at like over the years from this time, kind of concurrently with it, even though I had other journals going on. So these are notes from a book. I ran out of space in one of the journals I had going, so I had to take a different book and write in this loose leaf, and now they just have been floating around for 4 years in my house. I have tried to approach learning midpoints. That's a whole other topic we'll get to one day. Midpoints. I got a free reading on Facebook, Ask Astrologers, and I paid for a reading. And Astro Lori will get a kick out of this. One of the things he said was that I came into life with the validity of a spiritual guru, so that's fun. Not going to let that go to my head. So those are the notes on that. I found Alice Sparkly Cat, which is a fabulous resource. You should read their book as well. Where I had also read Rob Hand's horoscope symbols. And I can't remember the name of Ace's book, Alice Sparkly Cat's book, if it's decolonial astrology or decolonizing astrology, but I've completely colonized her astrology. Because somewhere on her site, and I've never been able to find it since finding it the first time, I was clicking around and a pop-up came up of like, get my free little download thing, which is like a Mad Libs, where you put in bits of your chart and it reads out like a story, or like it gives it to you that way. And so I took that template and I colonized it with Rob Hand, also a white old man, and I'm essentially a white old man. I'm a lady, but I'm a white old man. And like reworked it with like my understanding that I had gotten from her sources and from his sources, and did my own like Mad Libs thing. So like that was a good way to get to know my chart and get a different perspective on them. Love Ace's work. When I learned progressions, I printed off tabloid paper, and legal size paper is just the preferred size if you got to take extensive notes. So I mapped out my secondary progressions and like what day of the calendar of the ephemeris it would be and like where the planets were, like what they were doing, how fast they were going, what was going on for them. Um, so that was fun as well. And then in the last couple years, I was playing around with profection years and profection months and the blending of different house systems. And I've got a way too long video on like my approach to solar returns that includes this. Just always playing around with different techniques, right? And not always like having the confidence to put it in the journal. But I'm putting more and more stuff in the journals because this is annoying, just having it around. And also like trying to not be stingy with my journals. I'm like, no, like it's not good enough to go in there. Put it in there. What are you talking about? How dare you? How dare you say that about your beloved notes? So those are my loose leaf notes from primarily the first 6 months, but still ongoing. Even to this day, I've got notes all over the place. Okay, so now my specifically my moon journals. So this was my first one. This was a book I already had. So I just opened like to the middle and wrote down what the moon does and keywords that I learned from House of Formlab, looking up new and full moon rituals. That was the one I resonated with the most. And like another aspect of the timing was that I had been looking for a source for like, what do I do with the new moon? What do I do with the full moon? And I did my first new moon on December 4th. And that PDF that I used, that I found that I was like perfect, was released on November 28th. So if I had started at a previous lunation, I wouldn't even have had the source that I wanted. And I maybe would have stopped looking. And I maybe would have stopped this practice earlier because I would have hit a wall. I would have been frustrated with like the ethos of a lot of the different lunations or lunation rituals that I was seeing. I found the one that I liked and I was able to run with it. So this first year, I wrote down the new moons and the full moons and where they would be. And then every time that I did like a ritual or a journaling session, I would write down like the body part that's supposed to be associated with the sign, that I was just finding when you look up like the lunar information, the moon information, new and full moons on Astro, it has the body parts associated. So I was just writing that down. And then I would put like a little tidbit, like a little bit of what my intention was and then a little bit of what I had realized for the full moon. I circled the eclipses as like notable. And yeah, they were in Scorpio, Taurus, Scorpio, Taurus. I ran out of space, so I had to come do the rest of the year over here, and then I just had my little lunar diagram kind of throughout, adding little notes as I went because I would come back to this as my reference page and also as my like update page of what was going on. And then the first one was like really basic, and then they got like more and more convoluted. Like it was just a blurb for the first one, and this is a full spread for one new moon. And I would get more confident, so it would start with just the sign. Let's get into the vibes of the sign. And then I would add in the house number and like how is this supposed to show up in my life? And then I would add in the planets in the house and the ruling planet. And then because I was still in ABC land, I would take I can't even tell you now what it was, but I would take the ABC ruler or the modern ruler and add them in as well. So I was having lots of branches that were taking me like away from the place that I was trying to study. But it would get really deep and involved. Yeah, and then I would have all of this like that I was gonna initiate and like breaking down every little thing. And then if I had gotten to a point where I had now a full moon 6 months later than a new moon, I would like reference back to that new moon, those intentions, and be like, okay, 6 months later, what can I see in the light of this full moon in the same sign, shining back, and then do my full moon stuff that way. So this book took me through all the first months and the first eclipse and up to the second eclipse. So this book was up into this Aries point, and this stuff that I put on this other page ended up going into a different book. So then I had book two, I tried to stay budget friendly and get another of these books from Michael's, but they didn't have them anymore. They had like this smaller book, and like I knew that I was taking up space here. Like I didn't want to go any smaller if I didn't have to. And I really like paper blanks books, and so once every couple of years I'll buy enough books to get free shipping, and I'll kind of just look through what's on sale. Because I'm never really in a position to be like, I want that one and I'm for sure gonna get it. I wait till the one that I want is on sale and then I just gather who else is on sale. So I decided to try this Flexi book, and it is so far my favorite. I really like the size, I really like the style. I have some other books that are the same size, but they're half as thin. There's half as much paper, and I do not like it as much. So this ended up being like 2 years of lunations. Um, and it started as well as this one in the December. This was also when I started tracking transits on my transit calendar. So I have the moons all listed out, and then I eventually stopped putting in like little tidbits because I got tired with like setting intentions and trying to initiate stuff and always trying to be like, what are you working on? What are you releasing? And I decided to like kind of back off and just let it be like a journaling session instead of like a ritual or like something that I'm putting intentions into. I got tired of it. That I still do even any kind of observance that it is the fuller new moon, great track record because I am not a long term person. So we did what we could with it. But what I would end up doing is I would just throw on the astrology podcast like Cancer episode and listen to it on 2 times and like doodle in my book about like maybe some Cancer imagery of like the moon phases and a crab and just be doodling around different things while I took random notes about what was going on in the podcast. And then if I have planets there, I'll maybe rip through like that part of the podcast or like just take a quick second to write some stuff down. And then it's not like I have to sit here and make an intention or like do a release. The act of me sitting here writing what I'm writing without needing to analyze it is like part of it. It's like that's how it evolved. That's what it becomes. This Leo full moon is cute. I have a line there and I have a line there. And then I do tarot, and I usually would tie in tarot, so I would have all the notes in here as well. As well as this became a place where I was putting like any kind of astro specific real time transit note. So my study, if I was in a lecture and I was taking notes, or if I wanted to like pour through my chart and comb through it, those would go in my study journals, whereas this becomes like kind of my transit journal. And it's all in chronological order, so that's really nice. And just the act of like how much are you writing, how little are you writing, becomes information about like what the transit means for you, what that season, what that sign tends to do for you. So a little bit of the other notes started to come in here. Sometimes it was like full on journaling sessions that had nothing to do with a transit. It just became like a place to come and like feel. Um, but that's okay. And then again, I started to become like tired with the whole moon thing. So I started to like peter out and do it less and less and less. And that leads me to the current book that I'm in. Now, what I decided to do for this book is to combine a journal and just put in when the full moons and new moons were happening. So each of these little stickers is a lunation in my current journal. And I got these stickers for labels for like little potion bottles I have from Trying Planetary Magic. So a silver sticker is a full moon. And a gold sticker is a new moon because it's like a solar thing. So I can just go through if I want to and be like, oh, what was going on during, whatever new or full moon. And if I've done anything, it'll be written in here. How the time was going generally will be written in here because it's like my journal. However, I'm not going to continue this style of doing it whatsoever. I'm going to go back to having like a transit journal that is specifically like concentratedly the new and the full moons, but like all transits. Like if I want to record a transit, if I want to do a tarot pull, if I want to reflect, it's going to go into a specific transit book. Because this being a nice book with a limited amount of pages and being my go-to like just daily journal means sometimes I want to do full journaling. I want to have pages and pages of like my feelings and my thoughts and my contradictions, but I'm aware that I'm trying to put like a certain chunk of time in here as a reference for lunations, and like will I even get a full year in here? And like that's frustrating if I have to, I don't know, start multiple and have multiple little books instead of like this is the moon book. Do you know what I mean? If I'm looking for something, I'm looking in this one instead of looking through lots and having to keep lots and take care of lots. As well, it's pretty frustrating to look through here and be like, okay, there's a lunation around here. And if I wasn't making a dedicated lunation post, I even have to peer around and be like, where is it? Where is it? These are budgets. So obviously I was doing a budget at that time. Like that's information. And like I was doing whatever, but like where is the lunation? Where's the moon? Do I have any notes on the moon? Very hard to find. And finally, because this is the book that I use all the time, this is a softcover book. There's no real way to ruin the spine. My notebooks come out when I'm in a lecture and when I need to reference them, and if I'm in them for study. It's a concentrated amount of time. This floats around with me all the time. There's usually a pen in it, and then it's just closed. My laptop goes on it. My cat will step on it. I'll put stuff on it. It will sit in different angles, and so like the spine is kind of all blown out, and it's not lasting as long or as nicely as any of the other journals. As well as it's pretty hard to navigate because there's just everything in here. And sometimes I don't want to put the tarot in here, so I'll go to a different book, and it's just frustrating. So I am going to go back probably in December, which is when I expect this one to run out. I'm going to go back to something like this if I can. I have some other books at my disposal, some empty ones. They're this size and shape. So I'm going to have to get a different like book for lunations. But I guess for the next 6 months, this is the Moon Diary. It's video instead. So that is a brief tour of my moon journals, and what I've been doing. And I go through regular cycles of like being into it and being like very dedicated and like strict on like it's a magical ritual, to I'm just going to write down some notes, to I'm just going to have a normal day and note that like that was a lunation day and I can find meaning in it later. I'm not going to do the tangent. I spare you the tangent. The tangent is put it at the end. Tangent one is I feel like we blame formative experiences, like, and that's what made me too self-conscious to like be who I am, or like, and that's when I knew that this and this was true. Like those formative experiences that you think about and you're like, that's what changed me. That was formative. No, that was the experience that set in your mind, oh, that is true. Because until then, you've been holding it up, especially in childhood. You're holding up, like, am I worthless? Am I always wrong? Does no one like me? Or whatever. Am I amazing? Am I God's gift to everybody? And then you're going to have an outside the family, outside the normal, external social experience, which your brain has been waiting for to be like, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just them. Maybe it's just this house. Right? Looking for confirmation that, like, no, the whole world agrees with that. And then whatever has been like up in the air about like maybe this is true, maybe that is true, it kind of gets set by that external observation, and like communication to you. And so just like the first time that you learn a technique is not the first time you've taken notes on the technique. It's not the first time you've come across these words, but it feels like the first time you're seeing them, writing them down, handling them. It's because you've just been immersed in like the fog of language before then, and then that is the formative experience where like it clicks, it's real, this is information that's usable. And the way my brain works is always going to go into like, how can we therapize it? So that's the therapization of that concept. Hey team, thanks for watching this far. This is my impassioned plea for support, and I'm lulling you in with pictures of my little boy here. So I am basically in a game of chicken with the universe, and I can't go back to the real world and real work, and I need this to work somehow. There's no business plan, there's no receipts. I just need it to work. And so I am seeking your patronage. The benefits of patronage are varied and personal, but here are some ideas from johncanningco.com about the benefits of patronage and maintaining art and artistic presence and allowing the work that artists and mystics and hermits do to be what they're sharing instead of the work of survival, and then maybe they get to share or practice on top of it. I'm here, I'm ready to share, I'm ready to keep doing this work and more work, but I need support, I need help. So, personally, the benefits of patronage would be that you would essentially be helping to ensure my survival. If I can focus on the sharing of information, including what has helped my survival, instead of focusing all the time on surviving, that would be obviously ideal. I'm not asking to thrive, I'm not asking for wealth. I'm asking for the type of abundance that lets me live quietly in isolation with not very much except for a roof over my head and food in my tummy and my cat's tummy and sharing this information. The main benefit would be that you know that you're supporting a lonely hermit, neurodivergent, who has minimal support in the world. And you would know that you are helping to share art, esoteric knowledge, and hope. Not only the messages of hope that I may be able to spread, but the beacon and the welling of hope that would become my person, knowing that I am supported in this work. If you want a bigger explanation or a longer spiel about my situation or about the situation I find myself in, where I am now here begging you to please offer your patronage and help, that is linked below at the last timestamp. Otherwise, here is the contact information. A few dollars for a season, a few dollars for a chapter of my life. Literally anything is so, so, so helpful. If my situation changes and I am no longer seeking survival support, if I get to a place where my survival support is taken care of and I can move into growth and what people may call abundance or wealth, I will for sure update this little message and not continue it in this fashion. But until then, oh, typo, e-transfer. You can e-transfer support or email inquiries to the same email at wishthinkerdesign@gmail.com. Any tips, donations, or there's some Bibles and readings available at buymeacoffee/wishthinker. There is also a tarot YouTube on Wishthinker. Tips and donations can also be sent via PayPal at Hermitarius. And I do have a Patreon. There are no tiers or extra tidbits available. That can come after. Once I know what you want, I can give you what you want once you are my patron. But before then, I am not trying to figure out what people would want to buy from me. I am just trying to share the work and stay alive. And you could help.